Welcome to the Global Marine Network's overview video. In the next few minutes, you will learn how GMN's products and services satisfy your needs of a reliable and economical solution for satellite email, web access, and social media. As a result of our track record for customer satisfaction and retention with thousands of worldwide customers, you'll see how easy it is. In this presentation, you'll be hearing from Dr. Luis Soltero, CTO and President, who has a PhD and Master's in Computer Science, and Mr. John Dark, Vice President of Sales and Marketing. First, here's John.
Global Marine Networks is the name of the parent company. Our primary product is something called XGate. XGate is sold as XGate. It's also sold white label. So you may know it as Ocean's Mail, which is the exact same software. You might also know it as GMPCS Speedmail. The other variant of it is Iridium, AxcessPoint Mail and Web. And so you may know it under those names. We work very closely with all three of the major Western providers, Iridium, Inmarsat, and GlobalStar. All of our products work over any IP-based service, so they're really designed to work with any satellite company, and the fact that we're independent is a major advantage because with the Optimizer, you've got one device that's going to work across any satellite phone or terminal, as opposed to many of the services which are tied together into either a SP or into a device. So there's a major advantage in the fact that we work, everywhere with everyone. We work not only across all the service providers, but also across all of the different platforms. So a customer who wants to use their Mac, which is more and more common these days, or their iOS device, or their Android device, or a Linux box, of course, even any of the versions of Windows, we're able to work with them directly, and our software is going to support that, whereas most other providers do not. In fact, we're the world's only provider offering satellite data over an iPad or iPhone or iPod Touch. Let's look at how the Optimizer connects everything and how it works with everything. This is a really nice way to show how Optimizer really connects any satellite terminal you could possibly have with really any device. The Optimizer itself includes both a USB and an Ethernet input. For any of the USB-based satellite phones, you can connect that USB directly into the Optimizer and you're good to go. For older legacy devices, such as the 9505 or serial-based piece, like the GSP 1600, you can actually use a USB to serial adapter. There's really only one that works, or two, depending on how you're configuring it. But you can absolutely use the Optimizer with old legacy device phones. And that's another difference between the Optimizer and the Iridium AxcessPoint. AxcessPoint does not support Iridium legacy devices, whereas the Optimizer does. Obviously, over Ethernet, you can support the world of VBroadband and VGAN devices, and it will take that satellite data feed, turn it into a Wi-Fi hotspot, which is then controlled by software on the user's device.
XGate is available for portable devices, including Android and iOS devices. You can find XGate for iOS easily with Google. Just type in iTunes and XGate in the Google search bar, and the Apple App Store will come up where you can download the software for free. It easily sets up your iPod Touch, iPad, and iPhone and satellite phone in minutes. For computers, there's Windows, Linux, and Macintosh versions, very similar in features. There are a few additional features in terms of social media that are on the computer-based versions, but all are going to give you the same compression benefits, which we'll discuss in a moment. But first, it's satellite-based, and it's not that it just works over a satellite. The Optimizer and the software that is associated with it will detect the signal, it will control the connection, and it will restart the signal after a mid-file drop. By comparison, with other pieces of software, you'd have to open the signal and then remember to close the signal and manage your satellite phone through cumbersome device drivers. All of that inconvenience has been eliminated with XGate. The software itself controls everything automatically and naturally. The second feature is the Optimizer generates a Wi-Fi hotspot. There are a couple of major advantages of this. First, the number one technical support issue is getting their problematic USB cable to work with their computer and their satellite phone. They have to make sure they are using the correct drivers for the satellite phone. This problem is completely eliminated because you plug the USB cable directly into the optimizer. The optimizer is already programmed to recognize every single satellite phone out there. And so, all that the customer needs to be able to do is to connect to a Wi-Fi hotspot. Of course, there are certain customers, a tiny percentage, who find even that difficult, but most customers can connect to a Wi-Fi hotspot. This feature eliminates all the tech support and setup that's required when you have a USB cable going directly between your computer and your satellite phone, which means your smartphones and tablets, which don't have USB but can connect by way of Wi-Fi, can now work with your satellite data feed. It's really the only way to be able to access your satellite data through your iPod or iPad or Android tablet. The third major feature is the firewall. The beauty of the firewall is that it blocks all unwanted data. These days, so much of the software in a computer is programmed to look for an internet connection, which means there's all kinds of requests and pings. This kind of background activity can make a slow service useless, like the iSat phone data service, just by plugging it in and trying to use it. It significantly slows down the Iridium service. We've heard horror stories of the customer who plugs in their VGAN terminal, walks away, and then a Windows update happens in the background, and suddenly they're obligated for all sorts of data for a download that they didn't even want or know is happening. So this built-in firewall is an important feature because it gives complete control to the user and blocks all data except that which is specifically requested through the XGate service.
So let's talk for a moment about XGate. XGate is really the service platform. The core service of it is accelerated email. And the beautiful part about email is it gives you email, which is the killer app and the most efficient way to communicate, even more efficient than voice, because you can send one email easily to 20 or 30 or 50 people, and it can then be repeated as opposed to a single voice message, which is one-on-one. But also, email gives you the capability to quickly receive a lot of messages at one time, and to get weather updates via GRIB files. So email gives you really email and weather, even over a very, very narrow pipe. There's also a web compression capability to it, which is super. It's very, very, very painful on an iSat phone. I wouldn't recommend that for anybody at all on an iSat phone. Over an Iridium service, it's going to work very well, but only with mobile sites and small sites because the pipe is just still so tiny. Over VGAN or Fleet Broadband, obviously, it's just absolutely killer to use a web app. The other feature that we recently just launched is social media, and I'll get into that in a moment. So let's go into some detail here about XGate. So XGate is it's a piece of software, and it's an ongoing service that loads onto your device, and it has several advantages. It is easy to set up. They get a pop-up wizard, pop in their code and answer a few questions, and now they're off and running, no setup required. It's very fast. It gives you 15 to 20 times email acceleration on average. So that's definitely fast enough that within 2 or 3 minutes, you can do an entire email session, including weather files, and have great results. So it really gets you to an excellent solution very quickly over even something as slow as an Iridium or an iSat phone. For the web, you get 3 to 5 times web browsing. So depending on your device, you can get very good service. Again, I wouldn't recommend it for iSat phone unless somebody absolutely has to do it, but it works. And of course, it's easy to use. XGate handles everything for you all in the background. It's really Apple-like in its seamlessness. It does it all for you. It's extremely reliable, and by that I mean it increases the reliability of your satellite signal.
As an illustration, both Iridium and particularly GlobalStar see quite a few drops or service interruptions, but with XGate, if you're in the middle of an email session and have a dropped call, instead of having to start over at the beginning, XGate will pick up in the middle of that file and send the remaining, which saves lots of time in percentage terms and in real data fees. It will also automatically detect when that signal comes back, and so the whole process is efficient and seamless.
Even with a service like GlobalStar, where we've got huge outages, people are finding it very easy to do data sessions. And we're hearing back from the GlobalStar folks that in fact, it's just the best thing ever because the GlobalStar data guys are using XGate very effectively. And of course, it works with the devices that you already own. There's not a platform out there that we don't support.
So app in the Google Play, I guess, section, able to download just like for the iPhone?
Yep, that's exactly right.
All the versions of XGate can be downloaded free. Android, iOS, Mac, Linux, and Windows. So after downloading the software onto the device, the customer using an Android or iOS device needs to contact their dealer to get a 3-day free trial voucher, which the dealer will either create on their XGate admin page or procure from GMN. Customers using the Mac or Windows or Linux version of XGate can access the 3-day free trial from within the XGate software registration process. Customers are free to download multiple versions of XGate, for example, iOS for an iPhone or iPad, as well as the Windows version for your laptop.
They can actually use their same user ID and password across multiple devices. So if somebody wants to use XGate on their iPhone while they're out on the satellite phone and then come back and use it on their laptop at some other time, they can do that. It's the same email address. We license that for up to 3 devices, but there's no physical limit on how many devices they can have it on. They start reaching a practical limit because if you have one email address and you're not syncing in between multiple email devices, it gets a little hairy to know which email ended up on which device. But it's a really nice feature for those who have more than one device. So let's dive down a little bit into some of the services. We've talked a little bit about email, right? And you'll actually see at the top of this screen the actual XGate panel, what it looks like when you're running it on your computer. Just a screenshot I took from my Mac. And what happens is, see that little email icon there, fourth from the left? You're going to click on that, and it's going to open the email client that's included with XGate. Or you can configure it to work with your existing email program. But what we include with XGate is very lean and fast and clean. So you go ahead and click on your email. You then go into email and work offline, creating whatever you've got to do there. And then when you're all done with email, you would actually just press the start key, and it would go ahead and process all of those emails together in one batch, compress them all down because it's the most efficient way by far to handle compression. And then go ahead and send your email and check the server to see if there are any new emails for you to receive and pull those in, and then you'd be done. So it's a pretty seamless process, and we've talked about many of the features here, right? XGate already sets up your computer, it handles the connection, it restarts after a call. You can actually fetch mail from any account as an additional feature, or you can simply have your mail forwarded into XGate. So if somebody has a Hotmail or a Gmail or a me.com account that they want to use, they can certainly have that email pulled into XGate. Or they may want to keep XGate as a separate address. When you get assigned your XGate account, you're going to get your own at GMN-USA account, and you can leave that as an independent account, or you can fetch mail from other servers. We also support something for larger vessels called crew accounts. It's great if you've got a fishing vessel or a tanker or some other commercial ship where you're going to have crew members who will have email while on the vessel but not off the vessel. It's a little bit less expensive, but we can cover that later on if you want to go into crew accounts and how those work.
Another important feature to cover is Big Mail. Big Mail is our name for XGate's way of filtering out really large mails. So many people have become accustomed to broadband that if you look at your recent email history list, typically you'll see videos and pictures and PowerPoints, and each of these can be several megabytes. Over any handheld satellite phone data feed, that's going to overload your service, so it makes it inefficient to use. What the Big Mail feature does is provides you with just the header for anything that's larger than the preset amount of kilobytes, 50 kilobytes for instance. Anything that's smaller than 50 kilobytes is going to automatically be downloaded. Anything larger, and you'll get only the header first, and you'll have the option of whether or not you want to download that particular big email. The header provides you with a preview of whether or not you're downloading something that's very important and you want to spend the data on it, or if someone's just sending you a picture of a dancing cat or something and it's not at all worth bringing into your email until you have access to a high-speed connection. Now let's talk a little bit about weather. When people think about what they need from satellite data, they tend to think of email, web, and weather. And there's a large number of ways to get weather, but we really want to focus on one of the best and we think most successful ways to do it. There's something called a GRIB file, which requires a GRIB viewer to use. It gives you very detailed weather over time, some great forecasts. GRIB files are offered free by many services. We were the first on the web at Global Marine Net to provide free GRIB services. GRIB files are relatively tiny, 10 to 20 kilobytes, so they're perfect for delivery by satellite email. So the customer goes to one of these free GRIB file download services, and they can simply set up to have those services automatically delivered to them, and they're going to get coverage for their region. It's really a terrific way to do it, and they get it directly by email, so you don't even need web access. And this is why we designate weather as separate from weather from web or other services, because it's a feature the customers want. They receive it by way of their email. It has a tremendous amount of value, and it's very easy for them to use. GRIB files are the kind of thing that if you're a mariner, you know a lot about them and you know what to do with them, but if you're not, you might not. But typically, if you talk to somebody and say, well, you can do weather by way of GRIB files over your email, they're going to really appreciate that information if they spend a lot of time on the water.
Okay, the other piece we've just added with the omnipresence of social media services is the ability to update your Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter accounts. Now, my background, I spent a couple of years as the launch manager for Spot, and so I really saw firsthand the strong desire for people to tell others about their adventure or about what they're doing via satellite while they're doing it. There's nothing like being able to be out with your satellite phone and be able to just say, hey, here's where I am, here's what I'm doing, and post that immediately. These are not integrated viewers. Facebook is a massive page, and you'd never be able to make it successfully work over an Iridium or an iSat phone data feed, and it's pretty data hoggy to use with something like a VGAN. What these services do are actually update your posts directly to those services for you. And so if you press the little Facebook button, you'll get a pop-up window, and you can actually import a picture, which is going to automatically resize down to this very tiny size, but still look quite good. And you can put in your little message, hit send, and your update is going to be posted right to Facebook. So it's a great way to update your friends and family right while you're out and about. Same is true with Twitter, and we even offered LinkedIn for those business customers who find that a valuable service. Okay, let's talk briefly about the web browsing then. Again, for VGAN or Fleet Broadband, this is just absolutely the best service ever. You get really, really effective browsing. The customer saves a tremendous amount of data and time to get the information they need because they're really seeing the value of this. It also prevents them from that bill shock where they plug in their computer and all sorts of downloads happen, and somebody downloads a video and gosh, it's all over. This really gives you great web compression, and not only compression, but really a complete stripping of old backgrounds and animations and ad blocking and virus scanning. It's all done very seamlessly. And then XGate actually re-renders that page for the user. So you get these really impressive compression rates. We quote 3 to 5 times 10, but a site like m.cnn.com, which is a pretty common site to go to, can easily render up to 10 times faster. So, in fact, we did a test with the Iridium folks, and m.cnn.com without compression over the standard Iridium link took 5.5 minutes to load to have anything useful. Over XGate, it took 50 seconds to have the complete page usable with links and interesting information happening there. So it's really the difference between usability and not usability. It's a great service, even over Iridium. Of course, if you have those few GlobalStar customers out there, it's worked super over a 9.6 connection. It's actually a really, really good experience for the user. Louis, do you have any other comments to make on web at this point?
For VGAN, FleetBroad, and Iridium open port users, it's a kind of like a must-have. I mean, so if you think about Inmarsat or Iridium open ports running at $14 a megabyte, on average, you get 3 to 5x compression, which means that instead of browsing at $14 a megabyte, you'll be browsing at a fifth of that. So a $10 page might cost you $2 to download. And so there's significant savings to be had as far as money, cost of using the system, in addition to having the benefits of the speed increase. Now, one word of caution is that on iSat phone and on Iridium phones, although we can accelerate the web browsing by a factor of 3 to 5, 3 to 5 of a very, very, very slow connection is a very, very slow connection. And so people need to keep in mind that they're not going to get tremendous performance. I mean, people buy these services and expect the SL, and they don't get it. This will improve those slow phones, but it's still going to be very slow, and in a lot of cases, or in most cases, not practical. As you notice, we actually sell XWeb. We don't give it away for free. One of the reasons we do that is not because we want to make a little money on XWeb, but it's because we actually want to discourage the users from buying that service. And so by actually putting a little bit of a financial barrier there, we can get to explain why that barrier is there and then set their expectations in line before actually selling them that particular product. So,
and by that you're referring to the narrow band.
I'm talking about the narrow band customer. For the high band customer, the $8 a month that we charge retail can be made up by going to one page. www.cnn.com without compression is about 1.2 megabytes. With compression is about 400 kilobytes. It's the difference between $12 and $4 if you're using $10 per megabyte data, which is the entire month subscription for XWeb. For those broadband users, the $8 per month is just insignificant. For the narrowband users, of course, it'll give them some accessibility to the internet, but it's not going to be great.
A common question we have, Louis, is people want to use email and they think, oh gosh, I can just use webmail instead of using an email program. But that causes all sorts of problems.
Yeah, so let me just put this in perspective for you. To log in to hotmail.com, you just open up a web browser and you go to hotmail.com. The login process, which means bringing up the page, putting in your username and putting in your password, is 4.4 megabytes on an uncompressed link. Now, with XWeb, you can get that down to about 900 kilobytes. But on an Iridium phone, it takes 68 minutes to transfer a megabyte of data. So you're looking at an hour just to log in to hotmail.com.
Yeah, so definitely not even a workable way to use webmail, to do email. Using the XGate email program and your built-in email client that we provide you with, or the one that comes with your computer, together with XGate email, is going to be much more efficient, and you can go on and do a complete session in 2-3 minutes. So huge difference. But one other button there that we haven't talked about on the far right is GPS. If a customer has a built-in GPS on their boat, you want to talk about how that works and what that does to us?
Yeah, sure. The GPS, there's really nice built-in features of GPS to the XGate, which is free, which is a GPS repeater. So if you have a GPS on your boat hooked up to a serial port on your computer, XGate will read that GPS. It'll use it internally for tagging your blog postings and other features inside of XGate that require the GPS, like tracking, for example. But it'll also repeat that to another serial port so that you can have two programs running on your computer actually using the GPS data. So XGate uses the GPS data specifically for vessel tracking, which is a feature that we support that allows users with XGate and the GPS feed to actually use any satellite device to actually do tracking from their computer, automatically sending position reports through that feed. And also, whenever you post or your blog posting, there's an ability to actually read the GPS and put your position in there so that when your blog is posted on the blogging site, that particular blog is tagged and placed on a map with that location so that people can look at a map and then click on that dot and see your posting at that particular location. The optimizer supports tracking using the GPS that's built into the satellite terminals. And so you can use an optimizer to automatically do vessel tracking without having anything else connected to the optimizer.
So XGate, in addition to the client that you've seen on the computer, of course, also has the app. It's all very, Apple and smooth and uses all of the existing pieces that are built into Apple or into Android. They're both really excellent apps, both the Apple and the Android versions. You just get them from the Google Play or from the iTunes Store. Fully featured email and web browsing services. You don't use your Apple Mail in this case, and you can't. And there's a reason for that. The Apple Mail built into your iPhone or iPad is always looking for a network connection, and without it, the service is almost useless, even to read the last little few bits of mail. It does not save any of the mail on your device, other than just a few of the most recent ones. Unlike Apple Mail, the XGate app will actually save your email right onto your device, and so it really becomes a completely optimized solution for email, and it's really terrific. We've even heard stories of folks who are on cellular plans that are very stingy with their data, and they want to use XGate on here for cellular data as well because it's so much better at handling that. Okay, XGate GPS tracking. Actually, Lewis, I'll open you to talk about GPS and how that works with the optimizer.
Okay, so the optimizer, as I mentioned before, has tracking capabilities built into it. That tracking capability is powered by GSatTrack, which is the global satellite engineering tracking service. It means that anybody who buys an optimizer without adding any additional hardware can actually do GPS tracking. So when we get into the XGate demonstration, I'll show you the tracking page inside of XGate, but you can also access the tracking page from within the optimizer admin page itself. Very easily, you can just tell the optimizer to start tracking at a specific interval. If you have a VGAN unit, a fleet broadband, an Iridium open port, or an iSat phone, the optimizer will query those devices on the interval, once an hour, once every 5 minutes, whatever you specify, and it will sample the GPS from the satellite terminal, and then it'll go ahead and shoot that position report over the link and incorporate it into your website. And so all you need in order to use this service on your end is the IMEI for the terminal. You just configure that into your tracking device, into your tracking service inside of your tracking website, and you're off and running. And then on the client side, you just tell the optimizer that you just want to turn that service on and to start sending position reports. So that's a very nice way, especially for broadband users, to send tracking position reports, because the tracking position reports over a broadband device are free, almost. It's 25 minutes per data report, which on a megabyte plan is nothing. And so in essence, the airtime is free for doing the tracking on broadband devices. A flat monthly fee for as many position reports as they want to send using the optimizer. I will say that, as I mentioned before, for those devices that are not supported, in other words, satellite terminals that don't have GPSs built into them, Iridium 9555, for example, or a Mini-M, you can actually have a GPS connected to XGate, and XGate will sample the GPS and then send those position reports through the satellite link. That's not an optimizer feature, that's an XGate feature. So you have two different versions of tracking. You've got hardware-based tracking pushed by the optimizer, and software-based tracking driven by XGate.
Right, so the XGate version would require having a computer with the USB GPS device plugged into it. All right, so these are really the overall feature set of XGate that we call out. Obviously, there's more specifications in this, but you'll see that you've got a wide range of features. I'm not going to go through all of them because these are really what we hit on, but the only other ones that I'd like to call out are that many of customers from all over the world who have many different native languages than English. The service itself in the computer version has language support with 25 language dictionaries, but it's really designed to be seamless across languages. SMS messaging, the service where when you receive an email message, you can set it so that your satellite phone also gets an SMS message that notifies you that your email has arrived. So it means that customers don't need to, check in every 5 minutes. They're waiting for an email. They can simply have it set so that the email As soon as it arrives, it sends an SMS message to your SMS-capable satellite phone, which is iPhone, GlobalStar, or Iridium, any of them. You'll get that text message and know that you got an email there. It's a really nice service. So you've got retail pricing in here. So, what you'll see here is that the optimizer itself is $150. That's $25 less than the suggested retail price of the Iridium AxcessPoint. XGate has a one-time, while you keep it active, activation fee. And then it really just depends on how long the customer is purchasing the service for. Somebody buying a 1 year can buy it at $20 per month. So that's usually the price I quote when somebody is asking for that. If somebody just wants to do a 30-day, it's like $50 for that month. No activation, but generally 3, 6, or 12-month subscribers are going to be the preponderance. Either a 3 or 12-month is being the most common. Either people are going out seasonally, or they can maybe year-round and just want to buy it on an annualized basis. The additional services vary in pricing, but generally all you need to know is the activation and the ongoing monthly fees. Very straightforward. Okay, I want to talk briefly about Optimizer versus AxcessPoint. In addition to the couple of things that we've already called out, the biggest difference between Optimizer and AxcessPoint is that AxcessPoint Mail and Web only works using Iridium airtime. Now, I don't simply mean, Iridium versus the other SPs. I mean, it only works via Iridium and not when you get back to a web cafe or an internet cafe or your landline.
So, if you are sending emails and receiving emails to your address, the only way to send your queued up emails and the only way to get those emails that have been sent to you on AxcessPoint is by way of your Iridium data feed, where you're paying a boatload of money per megabyte or per minute.
With Optimizer, you can see over your Iridium phone that you've got a message, and if it's a big mail message, you can decide to wait to get back to some place where you have a standard wireless connection or a broadband connection, and separate from the Optimizer, use XGate to simply download that message over your regular home Wi-Fi. So the applications for this are pretty terrific, particularly for boaters who get into a marina or for travelers who end up in an internet cafe. They can do all of their email over XGate, completely independent of Iridium airtime. It saves them a ton of money if they're using it for anything way more than the monthly service fees are for XGate.
Yeah, because users that have XGate with AxcessPoint Wi-Fi devices have the ability to download email over Wi-Fi connections or through a USB connected to a different kind of satellite phone, and gain benefits for that. And so that's an XGate feature. Let me just show you a couple of resources. You should now be able to see my screen. I have a homepage of globalmarinenetworks.com on my screen. If you go to our homepage and you click on the button, the link that says Optimizer right here, that's going to take you to our page that describes the Optimizer. There's a video, and that video is 9 minutes long. That's me in the video. And that's just me going through a description of the Optimizer and all the benefits. And so that's a nice quick summary that you can use to kind of refresh yourself on everything it does. And you'll see a pile of satellite phones in the background there. Those are all satellite phones that are on my desk that happen to work with the Optimizer. Additionally, if you go to the home page, I want to show you a couple of videos. Here on the top right-hand corner, there's a couple of video tutorials. And if you go to the video tutorials and you go to the AxcessPoint Mail and Web section, you're going to see a couple things. First of all, you're going to see some videos that go through and show you how to use AxcessPoint Mail and Web. So the registration process with Iridium, how to install the application and so forth. These are not Optimizer or XGate directly videos, but they're beneficial to you since AxcessPoint Mail and Web is XGate. And so especially with the second video, anything that we talk about here with AxcessPoint Mail and Web works with Iridium, and also how to do the registration thing, and then specifically how to receive weather on an iPad using AxcessPoint Mail and Web, which also works with XGate. Now, right below that, there's two videos. There's the video that I showed you before, which is the one that basically describes what the Optimizer is. But right down here is another video that I created, which specifically addresses the differences between XGate and AxcessPoint Mail and Web, and between the Optimizer and the Iridium AxcessPoint. And so I'll just talk about those for a little bit, but I'm going to refer you to this video because this video is quite detailed. It's about 15 minutes long, and it does a blow-by-blow description or distinction between the two devices. All right, so let me just go ahead and start with the hardware description. The AxcessPoint device is built by a company called Redport. It's not ours, and the software is done by somewhere else. Now, we were very close in the development of this particular product because we were doing the software development with Iridium when this product was being created. But there's a lot of things about this particular product that were out of our control that were dictated by Iridium and the manufacturer of the hardware. You contrast that with the Optimizer, which is our product. It's a product that we design, it's a product that we do the software for, it's a product that we maintain, and it's a product that we have integrated closely into XGate. And so we control the end-to-end solution with the Optimizer, whereas we don't control the end-to-end solution with the AxcessPoint.
The advantage of that is the whole operation with the Optimizer is going to be a lot smoother than the operation with the AxcessPoint, because global marine networks can actually modify the software in the Optimizer as needed, as well as in XGate, to make sure that the end user experience is as seamless as possible. Louis, you have a good illustration for that idea.
So I just recently read the Steve Jobs book. I don't know if you've read that or not, but there was a really big to-do in there about iTunes and the iPods. And prior to iTunes and the iPods, you had a bunch of different iPlayers or players out there that did MP3s, and you had different ways to get the media, but it was a big mess because there was no end-to-end solution. And so Steve Jobs' big contribution to the music industry was to create an end-to-end distribution channel for the music and a player that was nicely integrated so that the user could very easily gain his music. Well, the same situation is happening with the Optimizer. Because we control all the hardware and all the software, hey, it's a smooth operation from beginning to end. So case in point, with the AxcessPoint, when you first use the AxcessPoint and you turn it on for the very, very first time before you've had a chance to run either XGate or AxcessPoint Mail and Web, the AxcessPoint goes crazy and it does its own thing. I don't know if you've noticed this or if you had customers complain, but if you take an Iridium phone and you plug it into the AxcessPoint and you turn on the AxcessPoint in the Iridium phone, that thing has a life of its own. That Iridium phone goes online and stays online and continues to stay online forever, consuming airtime, regardless of what the end user is doing. The reason for that is because when Iridium designed this particular product, they wanted that product to be generic and work with anybody's software or with no software at all. And so they decided that the best thing to do was to have the phone go online automatically and transmit any data that came into the hotspot so that people with Blackberries or people with Android devices and no software or people with WebOS or whatever could use the service. So that yields a very, very poor initial user experience and a lot of data support because the user plugs his phone on, it goes online, it's consuming his airtime, and the first thing he does is he panics. He starts pulling cords out, he starts turning things off, he starts turning off the phone, he calls on the phone and says, why is this going online? Why am I consuming? We've had customers that have consumed over an hour of airtime on their Iridium phones plugged into a docking station when they first turned on an AxcessPoint. Now, when you turn on the AxcessPoint and you have AxcessPoint Mail and Web installed on your computer, or you have XGate installed on your computer, and you hit the Go button, the very first thing that software does is it reprograms the AxcessPoint device to change the firewall so that nothing goes over that link except for email and compression-based web browsing, and disables the automatic connect so that the link control is managed by XGate or AxcessPoint Mail and Web. I just got an email from Ben Ellison yesterday. He's the electronic editor for Sail Magazine. He got an AxcessPoint Wi-Fi device from Iridium and an Iridium 9575, and his first email to me was like, hey, this thing I'm having a problem with this thing. I turn it on and it's going crazy. It's connecting to the internet and I can't get it to work. And so with a little bit of explanation, we explained to him that he needed to run AxcessPoint Mail and Web, dual connection, and then they'd get everything sorted out. Other major differences between the Optimizer and the AxcessPoint is that the Optimizer works with every satellite phone and every docking station. That means that if you've got an Iridium phone with a legacy serial port, Eurocom 9505A, you can use that with the Optimizer. You can use an Iridium open port with the Optimizer. The AxcessPoint only works with the Iridium 9555 and the 9575. It will not work with a beam docking station. It won't work with any other kind of docking stations. The Optimizer also works with 12 volts, which is really nice because most of our installations are fixed installations on cars or boats. And so you can drive the Optimizer with 12 volts directly. We have a nice 12 volt adapter. The AxcessPoint is only 5 volts, and so you need to buy some kind of 5 volt, 12 volt converter in order to use it. The battery life on the AxcessPoint is very limited. It's 30 minutes when you're running a 9575. The Optimizer doesn't have a battery, but it has a battery option. And so if you buy the battery option for the Optimizer, it'll push a 9575 in the Optimizer for 5 hours. And if you have a 9555, it'll push it for 9 hours. So in a portable environment, the battery on the Optimizer is going to work a lot better than the battery on the AxcessPoint. Finally, the Optimizer is $25 cheaper than the AxcessPoint. And it has 2 Ethernet ports so that you can use it on the LAN. You don't have to use a Wi-Fi. And also you can connect it into a broadband device such as a VGAN unit. And so that's basically the major differences between the hardware. I know that I went very quickly there, but it's all summarized in the video. And I encourage you to watch the video. As far as the XGate software goes versus Iridium AxcessPoint Mail and Web, Iridium AxcessPoint Mail and Web only works with Iridium airtime, so you can't use it over a Wi-Fi connection or through any other satellite link. It doesn't do social media, and it doesn't support some of the other features that XGate does. It's not multi-user, so you can't use crew accounts. It doesn't have a blogging interface, so that you can't do the blogs, etc. and so forth. I will say that the major driving force for Iridium AxcessPoint from the community is this concept of free email that Iridium provides. And so that's a very powerful concept. Free anything is very powerful, but one thing to keep in mind is that free is within quotes, because free means that they have to use Iridium airtime. And so if they want to be able to access their email through any other medium, including the internet, then there's a cost associated with that. And depending on how much traffic they want to do off of the Iridium network, that cost can definitely overcome the monthly subscription fee for XGate. So the fact is that most of the sailors spend more than 95% of their time at a dock and only very little traveling. And so if they're going to be doing email at the dock, then of course XGate is going to be a much better value for them than free AxcessPoint mail.
For more information on making airtime count, contact globalmarinenet.com. Thank you.